Welcome back to another edition of the Gabagools Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff. With me today, the Cuzzo Dan. We are in episode 26.
26, 26, as they say in Espanol. Wow. 26. When I was a young kid growing up in the suburbs, the Midwest suburbs, if you will, the mean streets, I didn't think I would be here, to be honest with you. I didn't think we'd make it. What about 2 episodes, let alone 26? But you know what? We're here.
We're here. We're ready to talk. As we were saying earlier before the podcast, weather is pretty warm out there today. Did you get out there at all?
Let me tell you something. It's not ideal. Coming in right around 85 to 90, I think, again today. So if you're outside, do yourself a favor, stay in the shade. Have a nice cold drink, do yourself a favor, do that. But this is the last day of another week-long-ish heat wave that we're in. So I know the rest of the week's supposed to be like 75 to 80. So that's going to be much better. But today, you got to get through today.
I know. Yeah, well, at least it's not raining, so that's always good too. But yeah, a little moist out there for sure. It's the humidity that always gets us too.
Moist is one of those words when people use it. It's one of those words when you hear it and you're like, man, if we're talking baking, moist, okay, all right. But then you hear moist in other, contexts and you're like, oh boy, I don't know if we, and that's what you think of when you hear humidity, yep. Midwest, moist. It is. I walked outside, let the dog out before the guy came over to check on our AC unit, and you're like, oh, geez, this is one of those, like, you know what? We're going to stay inside today. It's one of those.
Oh, yeah. As you said before, close all the drapes, huddle under a blanket and just, hope for the best.
Crank on all your little fans you've got. We've got one up there, we were cranking all those, those are at least a 2 or a 3, right? We'd almost never have them on a 3. 3 is the highest as you go, obviously. Most of the time it's a 1. Days like this, you might as well crank that sucker on a 2 or a 3. Test out the limits, as they say.
Always got to test the limits. But we didn't film last week, so we didn't really get a chance to break down the MLB trade deadline at all in its full entirety, right after it happened. But we still can, and we still will, and you'll listen if you want to. So I'll start us off. One of the first, let me see if I can get to one of the first ones that we we saw. One of the
first big ones.
Yeah, it was Randy Arozarena, right? That was the first one.
If my memory serves me correct, I would say he was probably one of the first ones or whatever. Yeah.
First dominoes to fall off of there.
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out who he got traded for. But while I'm looking at that, because we want to keep the podcast moving, we'll talk about the trade the Cubs made with Isaac Paredes for Christopher Morel. And to the prospects, one of them was being Hunter
Biggie, can't you see?
And then Ty Johnson as well. I did have Biggie a little bit on my dynasty team, so I know of him. I know he threw really hard. They made that whole post when his parents were there, and I think he got his first strikeout, so that was pretty cool. I guess I want to hear what because being the Cubs fan, what was your reaction to this trade?
Yeah, a little sad to see Chris go. I've liked Morel. This was, I guess I'd have to go back and see how many at bats and how much everyday playing time he had last year. But this to me was one of the first times where he kind of had the everyday sort of we're getting your bat in there every day, and he's the type of guy. His numbers are solid. They're not going to jump off the page, mainly with the average. I think the average is a little bit lower than you'd like to see, but he's got that power that you love to see. He's kind of got that lightning in a bottle. You know what I mean? Where he could just run into one late in the game and win it for you. He's done that for us. I don't know how many times. I kind of like the tiger stripes or whatever he does with the eye black underneath. You kind of like that. He brings a lot of energy, too. You got to like that. He can get a little over the top. I'm not going to lie. He hits a home run, comes up.
No worse than Baez.
Javi, yeah. Well, okay. Well, Javi's another discussion. But, sad to see Chris go. He's a real nice player, and I'm sure a guy like that going to Tampa, they're only going to figure some things out for him. I think he'll going over there. I mean, they'll probably help mature him a little bit, and I think he'll kind of come into his own a little more. So good for him.
Yeah.
I also I barely got to see Hunter Biggie, but I'm glad you brought him up because the Cubs for like the longest time, we just don't really have guys who throw hard. We've fixed that
No.
a little bit, but seeing this kid come up and hit triple digits and do all that, it's fun when you've got that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
100%.
all around the league now. It was fun to see that for us, and sad to see him go. But I honestly I like Paredes. I think he's a really
Yeah.
nice player. I think we have him under control until 2027, so we've got him for a couple of years. And he honestly, from what I've seen, I haven't seen him play that much, to be fair. But from what I've seen, from what I've heard, real nice player. I think he was an all-star this year, first time.
Yep.
So, and coming from, in a good organization like Tampa's one of those Moneyball type of organizations where they have to draft well. They have to, scouting and development for them has to be leaps and bounds better than almost everyone else because that's where they make their money. So, I like the trade. I don't love it just because I liked the small sample size, very small sample size I saw from Biggie
Right.
and Morel, but this Paredes kid looks like he's pretty solid. So I'm happy to see how he fits in with us in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, you have him up until, I mean, they'll probably sign him to an off-season deal because he's got ARB years coming up, but you'll have him under control until 2027, or at least through that. So, I do I did like that trade, honestly, for you guys because it's like right now you guys aren't trying to win, but you guys aren't going to sell off everything that you guys just tried to build around. It's a good piece. I mean, he's an
Yeah,
actual third baseman. Morel really didn't have a spot.
right.
That was another tough part because you guys had so many of the same players on your team. I did once again. I think I brought it up on the last podcast you and I did, but the Mount Rushmore of Chicago stars that they had on there, and they had Morel on there, and then he gets traded. I wish I could have found it because that would have been perfect troll material. Just because nothing against Morel either. I've
Yeah.
actually thought he was a good high energy player, and I like those type of players as well. But it's just kind of funny that people thought he was the like stepstone building block. But yeah, like you said, Paredes was an all-star this year, so see what you guys can build around with him, and hopefully strike gold. But both of them are pretty solid.
I think that was another part of the trade too. Like you said, Chris didn't really have a certain spot to play every single day, and like you said, Paredes is a legit third baseman. So that's been definitely one spot for us. We've been trying to kind of plug and play pretty much the whole year. So
Yeah. Yep, and then finally I did find that Randy Arozarena. It wasn't the first one, but that was like the second big
one of
one in
them,
my
yeah.
opinion. Yeah. So obviously the Mariners acquired Randy Arozarena for a couple prospects from the Rays again. Randy kind of had a rough year to start. But we're talking about a guy who just tears it up in the playoffs. And if the Mariners do kind of hold out that AL West, I know they've lost a couple games since we've actually talked about it, and the Astros kind of have made that move up into the into the first place for that. Oh no, I just checked. Okay, so we're back with the Mariners. Live action, Mariners are in first by a game. But that division is kind of a gauntlet when you either have the two extremes. You have either the really really bad or the really really good. But the Mariners getting Randy Arozarena is just only going to help them just because they needed an outfielder, especially with Julio Rodriguez getting hurt. So you kind of needed it. And they really didn't give up a whole lot for him. Their 12th and 22nd prospect. I don't really know much about those guys, so I'm not going to try to even act like I do. But, adding a high energy player that if he's in the playoffs, you can almost count on him being that guy.
Yeah, Randy's a really nice ad for Seattle. Seattle's kind of been that team for me, similar to Baltimore, the different needs. But Seattle, for me, I felt like they should have went out and got a big bat. Okay, I like Randy, but this is Seattle. I mentioned this at the beginning of the year. I think with that starting rotation, They can. All they need to do is get to the playoffs. But they had such a good chance to win the division this year, and now you've let Houston come up, and now it's only a game lead for Seattle. Seattle, month and a half ago. I know that's a while, but they had an 8 or 9 game lead over Houston and Texas. And now that is completely withered away. And now you're going to have to fight tooth and nail just to get the division. I mean, I know it was early, but a lot of people were saying Houston's not coming back. They're done. Texas has kind of been in that lull. They've been waiting to get some of their pitchers back, but they're still kind of, So for me, I would have liked to see Seattle go out and get a bigger bat than Randy. I think they got somebody else too. They made a couple deals, but I like Randy. I just would have liked a bigger name than a Rosarena for me personally. But I do like the player.
Yeah, absolutely. We could touch on it a little bit later when we touch on the Sox, just in general. But like Luis Robert would have been probably a perfect fit for them.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. But that being said, hit me with one of your trades that kind of stuck out to you.
Okay, one of them that stuck out to me. I've got a few here. We'll go with this one. This is just I was just looking at stuff. I'll rattle off this one. Dodgers get Jack Flaherty from Detroit, who's had a really nice bounce back year. I think his ERA, at least as of a week ago, was under 3. So, as a guy who a couple years ago was one of the top young pitchers in the game, then he had to deal with some injuries, as we know. And a lot of people were kind of like, okay, well, we'll take a flyer on him. He goes to Detroit, and I would say kind of quietly has had a pretty good year too. I mean, Detroit was supposed to be a little bit better this year, or at least in some other people's eyes. Some people were higher on Detroit, some were higher on Kansas City coming into the year. Obviously, Kansas City has been much better, but and then just for the Dodgers, right? I mean, I don't like the Dodgers. I don't
know anyone who does, honestly. Well, I do. Someone that we play fantasy with likes the Dodgers, but that's the point.
But they need to fire. They're one of the teams that needs to fire their strength and conditioning coaches, and all of them. They get, I mean, the list of injuries that the Dodgers have every single year, especially to the pitchers, is astronomically long. And then they go out and get a guy in Flaherty who has already had his arm issues. He's having a great year. He's healthy. Good, great for him. But it's like, the Dodgers, they've got all this money. They go out, they spend all the money in this offseason, and then Yamamoto's now hurt. And Buehler, I think, is out again. And, Kershaw, I think, came back. But what are you going to get from him and all the other guys who are hurt? So they have to go out and get Flaherty. And, that to me, that weakness for the Dodgers, I think, this is a conversation for another podcast, but I think that's what's going to limit them. I don't think they're going to win this year because they've got no starting pitching.
Yeah, almost all of them got
They're all hurt.
Like you said, Yamamoto was like the biggest one, and Ohtani's not pitching right now. Walker Buehler's been just horrible. Even when
Bobby Miller
has been terrible too, and I think he just got hurt in AAA or whatever, where he's trying to work it out. But like you just said, I do like the signing or the trade because for the Dodgers, being impartial to it, like that's a great pickup for them. I know they were like farting around with Garrett Crochet too, but you can't. That's an amazing pickup for a guy that has had a great year and bounced back, and he actually looked really good too. For in his first start with the Dodgers the other night.
Yeah, and Detroit gets Dodgers 8 and number 22 prospects. So I don't think there are any guys that jump off the page too much. Similar to what you said with the other guys, I don't know them very well, so I'm not going to try to pretend that I do. But the Dodgers are a team that always seem to have prospects down there. 8 and 22, solid enough. So it seems like, Detroit, you got a decent return. But, yeah, for the Dodgers, you get a pitcher. And, you just mentioned Crochet. Probably would have had to give up a lot more to get Crochet. And Flaherty's a guy where if he can stay healthy, he could be close enough to Garrett Crochet if he can stay healthy.
Absolutely. Speaking of the Sox and Dodgers, they did make a trade too, which when it was kind of a messy trade. It took a lot. Like I saw it drop, and I'm like, oh, this is just messy. So pretty much it was a 3-team trade
Yeah.
between Cardinals, Dodgers, and White Sox, and it honestly had my head kind of scratching because I feel like the Sox could have traded all 3 of these players separately and gotten more or something better. But the Dodgers acquired Tommy Edman and Michael Kopech. Edman came from the Cardinals, so we got to preface that. Cardinals got Eric Fetty from the White Sox, Tommy Pham from the White Sox, and then the Sox got Miguel Vargas, Uriel Perez, and Alexander Albertus in the deal. So the Dodgers got Kopech. He wasn't very good for the Sox. Unfortunately, with injuries and just I don't know if it was just the White Sox got the stink on him. So he never really could bounce back because if you go back to his 2021 season, he was awesome out of the bullpen. They tried to put him back to be a starter. I think that was a mistake, even though they needed him to be that starter. I just don't think he had the starter stuff anymore. But like you go back to the playoff game, he looked awesome in that when he was coming out of the bullpen. He looked good in the Field of Dreams game. That was like an insane amount, or like an insane game for him. So I think the Dodgers, I think he's pitched twice for them. He's looked really good. I think his first outing, he struck out the side. So I'm rooting for him. I'm not going to be bitter about it. So, I'm happy for him. So we got Miguel Vargas, who, really couldn't find a spot with the Dodgers and kind of struggled with some injuries too, but he did tear up AAA when he was there. And pretty much every minor league system that he played in with the Dodgers. So he was one of their top prospects. So it's kind of nice to get a guy that you could kind of just slot into the MLB team right away and see what we have. I mean, giving up Kopech, it's not like you're giving up the world. Maybe if you asked me that 4 years ago, I'd have been like, hell no. But, given the circumstances now, solid. And then they got 2 infielders. I think one of them's hurt. Like he's been hurt. It wasn't like he just came over and was hurt. So he's recovering. But lower end prospects, and then the Cardinals somehow got Eric Fetty and Tommy Pham essentially for Tommy Edman. Let's be honest, because they didn't give up anything.
I was just going to say, like, who do you think the real winner is, at least right now in the short term for that trade? And it has to be St. Louis, right? I mean, you get Fetty, who's had. You almost knew the writing was on the wall for him to get traded with how poor you guys have played and how good he's been, right?
So good.
He's been great. He had a 3-something ERA on the worst team. I mean, you knew that, he's going out there, he's not getting run support, and he's still pitching and winning games. So you knew he was going to get traded. And then Tommy Pham, he's just a professional. He keeps going from team to team. He hits. He does his job. He fills into every role that they need him to fill in. He does everything well. He's just a great player.
He was also hitting very well for the Sox too. Like he put up some good numbers. So good for them. Glad that they got out. I mean, you lose 20 in a row. You kind of hope everything. And it's just funny too because the Sox refused to. Like Jerry will never fire a manager mid-year. He either waits till September or waits until the end of the year. I don't know what they see. I mean, they're gonna fire him. Grifol is a fucking idiot. Excuse my language here, but he is. He's
number one.
Yeah, it's one for the show. I don't know. It's so perplexing. I think that was a Rick Hahn like, hey, I got my guy managerial choice. And didn't have to do with Jerry, didn't have to do with Kenny, and they let him pick him. And I think he's only won 88 games in 2 or 3 years, which is just awful.
It's not good. And when you look at, we can talk about this at the end of the year and more in depth if you want. But 20 in a row is I saw last night that you guys were going for it, and you guys scored at least 7 runs. It's not like
no, it's not like they're getting shut out. I mean, they're just finding ways to lose, and I'm honestly rooting for them to lose at this point, just because it's actually very, very funny.
It's like the Oakland A's with Moneyball a few years ago, but reversed.
I saw a meme of that. Somebody actually posted it from the movie where they like roll out the big 20 banner. Yeah,
it was awesome.
That was funny. Yeah, so we're rooting for history. I guess the MLB record, if the Sox don't win because they have the Cubs versus Sox coming up this weekend, I think they could actually break the record if they don't win this whole week and they go play against the Cubs.
Really?
Yeah, that would be something. And then so you see history, you get Cubs Sox, you see history right there, and then you get a fireworks show after because it's a Friday night.
How about that? Huh? That works out. That's pretty cool.
All right, enough bitching about the White Sox. Go ahead.
Well,
One
I
more
was going
thing.
to say, since we're on the topic of the White Sox,
Yes.
we have not talked about Eloy.
Yes. I don't know if I texted you this. I know I texted Rich, but thank God. I was done. You know what's funny is he's actually hitting the ball with the Orioles too. So you can
Of course he is.
Well, and I'm telling you, the guys just didn't want to play here. They got into this clique, and this goes back. So we're going back into it because we have to. So there was a leak like 2 or 3 years ago, and it ended up coming out from that it was Dallas Keuchel saying there was a lot of cliques in the locker room, which makes sense because Jose Abreu had his guys, which was Moncada, Eloy, Robert, a lot of the guys that all got hurt except for Jose, and a lot of these players started like complaining about the clicks and how lazy some of these guys are. And it makes sense when you look at how many injuries some of these guys have. I saw something that Yohan Moncada, like there was a headline that said like he was already prepared to get hurt again or something along the lines that he was prepared for soreness. Like, I don't know how you prepare for soreness.
Yeah, or was that where like he was going to need a day off, or I think I heard something like that too. And it's like,
I
how
know
the hell?
Barstool
It's
went off
unbelievable.
about it too. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't. You know what? I mean, that's. I just.
I mean, I'm happy to get rid of all those guys. Get rid
Yeah.
of all of them. And back to Eloy. The fact that we got anything for him, I'm happy with. We got a left-handed, reliever. I don't really have much to say on him. I don't really know anything about him. He probably won't be on the team. But the fact that we got rid of Jimenez's contract for whatever it is left, I'm perfectly fine with it. Enough was enough. He had one probably solid year where we thought, hey, this is the guy. And he just ended up not being the guy. So, it's a shame. We can make the joke the Cubs won the trade or whatever. Nobody won it. It's null and void now. Cease looked good.
Cease looked good. Cease looked more than good. Yeah. When we gave up Eloy, however you want to say his fucking name.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
I was a little upset too because I thought, okay, this is a big guy. He's hit at every level. Like this is
shattering lights. Shattering lights and home run derbies. That was the biggest thing I remember being like, oh shit, we just got Eloy. Because I remember seeing it too, and I was like, okay, the trade deadline's coming up. Let's see. And it was so funny because it was as soon as it broke that the Cubs were trading for Quintana. I looked, I'm like, please be, Eloy. And it was. And unfortunately, he just never panned out.
Couldn't stay healthy. But
Nope.
you know what? That happens with a lot of players. What are you going to do? It's a good thing you got them out of there. They were a cancer. You got to get the other ones out. And
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot more cancers in that organization that need to leave, but that's besides the point. Sox also got rid of Tanner Banks, left-handed pitcher. He was actually really solid. When he was good, like when the Sox actually gave a shit. Phillies needed bullpen help. We ended up getting their 11th prospect, a second base shortstop guy, William Bergola. Hopefully he ends up being something. So good move for both of them. And then, going back to the Fetty trade, I did have to laugh because that was such a small return compared to what the Astros gave up for Kikuchi. And we could make the argument that Eric Fetty is way better than you say Kikuchi. I think that's how you say his name.
How you say Kikuchi? You say
something like that. But just the return was so small.
Yeah, Fetty. I looked at that 3-team trade. I'm like, man, you're right. The way you summarized it was messy, basically, and it was. Because it's like, who the hell's going where? And then you see that you guys got. Who'd you get? You got Vargas, right?
Yeah, Vargas is the main one, and 2 like single A infielders. Where and flipping it on the other side, when I'm bringing up Kikuchi, that the Astros got him, they gave up and not because you play fantasy baseball with me, so you kind of have an idea who some of these guys are. Jake
Mhm.
Blouse, who was he was pitching pretty well for them. Uh, Joey Loperfido, who was tearing up AAA and actually made he almost made it out of spring training on the MLB roster, but they sent him down. And then Billy Wagner's son, who was their 13th prospect. So 3 prospects for
Yeah.
Kikuchi. And
Yeah, I
Fetty's
thought
on
I
a
saw
better
that.
deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought I saw the Kikuchi. They got 3 players for him, and I'm like, man, who the hell did they get 3 players for that guy for? And yeah, agreed. Especially too, you had Tommy Pham. You probably could have gotten 2 players for Tommy Pham.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what is honestly, the other GMs have to be laughing. I mean, I'm laughing at them. I know everybody else is. That's why I'm like hard to troll because I'm actually agreeing. I'm probably worse. I'm trolling myself at this point with how much of a joke this goddamn organization is. You had to get something else. Like, I would have taken a low flyer and give me like a AAA guy that just needed a chance. And Loperfido would have been that perfect guy.
You know what? Hopefully, you guys are going to get a top pick this year, somewhat.
You
Hopefully, you hit
can't.
on that.
You can't. Because of the new rules with that, we can't even get it inside the top 10. So it doesn't even matter how bad we are because of the stupid lottery rule. So, like, they're literally the turd that just won't flush. And the water's just starting to, like, overflow.
That's good. That's a good one. The turd that won't flush.
Overflowing and just
You got to
stuck
get in there
into.
with the plunger and start really jabbing at it. You know what I mean? Get down there.
Yeah.
You.
All I could ever hope is that Mark Cuban, Alex Rodriguez, one of these billionaires buys the White Sox and just either not even moves the team, but just will invest in them and not
Yeah.
invest in loyalty to former players. And that's what Jerry does.
No, you gotta. You guys need a lot, obviously, in the front office. It starts with the owner. You got to get rid of him. We know that. Um, yeah, if you guys really are the shit that won't go down the toilet.
Seriously are. Speaking of go ahead. I saw
Oh,
you
I
had a.
was just gonna say another trade that I had. This isn't a big trade, but
That's okay.
another one the Dodgers got. They get my buddy Kevin Kiermaier, who said that he plans to
Yeah.
retire at the end of the year. So I kind of
Yeah.
thought, okay, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? He gets a chance. You know, he's he was coming from I think Toronto, right? He's been with Toronto last year
Yeah,
too.
yeah, he spent most of his career in
With
Tampa.
Tampa, yeah.
Won Gold Gloves too. He's an awesome outfielder. So, and the Dodgers will get the best out of their players because they do with what's his name too, Jason Hayward. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, showed a
Yeah.
little signs of life. So yeah, that was a good one. Happy for him.
If
Uh,
Kiermaier can hit a little bit, that's going to be the only thing. But if you like you just said with Hayward, if Kiermaier can hit a little bit, I think he's still at like a +10 or something in the field
yeah,
this year. I mean, he's still elite out there in center field. So
yeah, yeah. They'll Dodgers are going to come back. Like Freeman
yeah,
is coming back. He had some family issues. I don't know if you saw that. Like
yeah.
nothing. Like just like his son was in the hospital or whatever. So just got released. So hopefully he'll be back soon. Mookie Betts is supposed to come back by like next week. So
Mm.
the Dodgers are going to be real tough in this last month of the season. But another team that is kind of like the dark horse darling. My buddy Austin from work will enjoy this, but the Guardians got Lane Thomas from the Nationals,
That was
and
another one.
they got him for a couple of prospects. I think they're number 8 and number 22 for sure. I don't know anything about these guys, but the dude just hits too. Lane Thomas, that is.
No, I like Lane. I've got him, I think, in one of our leagues. I think the power numbers might be a little down this year,
Yeah,
but he's got like 30 stolen bases, I think, this year, if not
yeah,
more than that. I like guys who've kind of got that power speed combination.
yeah,
Um, Speaking of Washington, just for a quick second, they've made a few deals and they've gotten, it seems like Washington over the last 10, 15 years, they just draft players well. They
yeah.
acquire guys in trades. They call them up. They're great. And then, you know, they don't have, I mean, I don't know how much money they have. I know they have some cash, but they usually end up leaving. But Washington's acquired some guys too. The Lane Thomas one, though, um, Cleveland gets Lane Thomas. Washington gets 3 prospects. I think they get Cleveland's number 8 and 22, so
Yep.
solid. And they got someone else, obviously, who's a little bit lower than that. But Washington's, if you look at some of these trades they've made, they've acquired some guys. There's another guy that they got. I'll try to find him on here, but
That's fine.
go ahead.
Speaking on the Nationals too, is like, yeah, obviously they got a haul from go back to last year for Juan Soto. I
Yeah.
mean, they got CJ Abrams, who's their like cornerstone shortstop now. They got James Wood, who came up this year. He's a highly touted prospect. I think he was number 2 right behind Jackson Holiday. And I think Mackenzie Gore, which they'll try to figure it out, or he'll find a spot. But they also produce good relievers too, because a couple of them have gotten moved too. I know Hunter Harvey got moved to the Royals. Royals could obviously need that bullpen help because that's where they're blowing a lot of these games. MacArthur's not it, and they ended up keeping what's his name? Though I can't think of his name either. We're really bad with names on this podcast, I have to say. But they have Finnegan. Kyle Finnegan. He's awesome.
Yeah.
He blows a couple of games, but he's been really good. I don't know why they kept him, but yeah, you can't say enough nice things about the Nationals. I mean, they have turned that team around.
Another one with them, they made a deal with Arizona. Arizona got Dylan Floro, who's been great this year. Little did I know, he's got a 2.06 ERA the last time I checked, but with over 50 innings on the year, so he's been dynamite. And Washington gets a third baseman, quarter infielder, Andres. I'm going to try to say this. It's not that hard. Chaparro, something like that.
There you go.
But at AAA this year, hitting 332, 403, and slugging 564. So another name to be looking at. And Dylan Floro's a nice player, but Washington gets another guy like that back. This is what they do. Mike Rizzo, those guys over there, man. There are organizations that you've got to look at and say, man, these guys just know what they're doing. They do this year in and year out. And
they won in 2019.
Yeah, they won in 2019. Kind of
I think. Go ahead.
I was going to say you can call it a fluke, but they got hot at the right time. They had good players on there. They had good veterans. They did what they had to do.
Yeah, Anthony Rendon really he was unstoppable in that playoff run. But I mean, they Bryce Harper. He wasn't there for that championship, but they had Max Scherzer, Strasburg. That was his last hurrah. I think he blew out his arm right after that. And then I think he got signed to a longer deal after that too, which is kind of hilarious.
They extended him right after because I think he might have even been the World Series MVP because he was so freaking good.
Yeah, I think he was. And then Trey Turner. All those guys are not even, and Juan Soto was on that team too. So
yeah, it's unreal.
It's crazy. They draft well and they do a lot of good international signings. But moving into the East or staying in the NL East, Jorge Soler went back to the Braves. They got rid of, I think, Tyler Matzik. The Braves are kind of just holding on by a thread this year. A lot of injuries. Albies is out now. Acuna's been out. So they're looking for a fire in a bottle again. But moving into the Marlins, they traded away Trevor Rogers to the Orioles for Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers. 2 guys that ultimately had trouble finding playing time. Jackson Holiday, Kobe Mayo, Gunnar Henderson, and the guy on your team, Westberg.
Yep.
All those guys were going to be in the infield, so you had to kind of trade somebody. Norby, that's a great pickup for the Marlins. And the Marlins could honestly, you could make that argument that they had the best trade deadline. Yeah, trade deadline this whole season because I think they got 20-something players in return for 12. I think the Orioles could have done a lot better. I think they should have traded for Crochet. That's just me being biased, and I also want some of their infield prospects. But I mean, even once again, we're talking Eric Fetty's better than Trevor Rogers.
Yeah.
I would have taken that deal.
It shocks me how Baltimore made some moves. They're another team. I mentioned Seattle. Baltimore made some moves. They got Gregory Soto, but he's pitching to a 4.5 ERA. I mean, if you're going to go out and get guys, you got to get the right guys. Baltimore's been too stingy. They've been too afraid to trade their guys. And you know what? They traded away it is going to cost them because if think about it, they could have tried to get a Crochet. What about like a Dylan Cease to go up there with Corbin Burns 1-2 or Corbin Burns and Crochet 1-2?
Padres are kind of going after it still with that team. They have to.
Yeah, and you know what? They got hot recently. They were just 9-1, I think, a week or so ago. You're right. They have
Eight
gotten
and
hot.
8-2 in the last 10. So they're I mean they're only 4.5 out, and like you said, the Dodgers are banged up. So I mean this is the time to do it. And I think they actually took the series or the season series against the Dodgers this past week too. So
San Diego, yeah, they're hot right now. This was probably more a month ago when San
yeah,
Diego wasn't this hot. But I'm just saying, Baltimore, I mean, you've got all these young players, like you said, that can't all play on your team, and you need starting pitching. Okay. They could use another guy to go up there with Corbin Burns, who's having a great, great year. You add another guy to go up there with him, and then you still have Grayson Rodriguez. You got a nice, formidable
yeah.
three guys you can roll in the postseason. They've got two. A couple of their guys have been hurt. I don't know. Um, I mean, if they that's just a team that screams, go out, trade a couple of these young guys, get yourself a starting pitcher, and become maybe the team. They're still trying to take down the Yankees for first place, and they're
I
going to
know,
be
and
doing
they've
that for
kind
the
of let
rest of the
them.
year.
They've kind of let life back into the Yankees
Yeah,
too. The Yankees went on that horrific after the All Star break. They lost. They were in the same running as the White Sox for being the worst team, which I actually don't think the Sox have won since the All Star break. I don't think. Anyway, back to the
probably not.
Orioles. The other arm they got was Zach Eflin. No one really big out of the Orioles prospect list. I think their best was like number 10. It was like Mac Horvath, another infielder. Um, but like I said, they could have traded for a Crochet if they really want to be serious. And imagine that. I also had this thought too of like if Pittsburgh was serious about contending, they go trade for Crochet. Go take one of your lower end pitchers, pair him with Tamar Johnson, I think his name is. I would have taken that for Crochet.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. I mean, Pittsburgh would
Yeah,
have had to really believe that they can
I don't think
really
they
win
do.
this year. I don't think that. I mean, you can't. Ben Cherington, I think's the guy over there. Maybe he's not, but um, Pittsburgh's got some nice pieces. They're an organization that just for whatever reason they can draft pitchers, but they seem to really lack when it comes to the offense. So, you
Yeah.
know what? O'Neal Cruz, I'd have to see what his numbers are this year. I think he's had a decent year, but
He's had a
I mean,
decent year.
you need more than him too. You're going to need more than just
Yeah.
one bat. And you got Skeens, who looks great. My buddy Jared Jones has been hurt the last month or so.
Yeah.
He's looked great. Um, but yeah, I mean, for them, I mean, heck, I don't know if we're still in last or if Pittsburgh is, but Pittsburgh would still have to jump at least three or four teams in our division. And frankly, you look at St. Louis, they just with them acquiring Fetty and Pham, that's huge for them. I mean, we haven't
Yeah.
really talked about Milwaukee. I think they made a couple trades,
They
but
were really quiet, in my opinion. They went out and got I think it's Savali, and he's been garbage too this whole year. That guy cannot pitch at all. Um, I'm looking back. I don't think they really made any big moves, but that's kind of what Milwaukee does. Um,
yeah,
another guy too. Not to go back to the AL East, but the Orioles got Sir Anthony Dominguez too. Another
mm,
kind of bullpen arm too. To kind of help Craig Kimbrell because you know how he goes on those streaks where he just blows games like weekly. Um, it's
that's kind of
interesting.
crazy too because you're talking about a guy I mean, if he goes another couple years, you're talking about a guy who's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame because he's got 400 something
Yeah.
saves.
Oh yeah, he will.
Um, but yeah, you talk about a guy who's like, upper echelon, potential Hall of Famer, and he goes on these lulls where it's like you have him out there. He's so bad.
Yeah, yeah. We both know very well because he did it for both the Cubs and Sox. But touching on the Yankees too, because we were in the AL East still. They got Jazz Chisholm, and the dude came up and hit like 4 home runs in his first like 10 appearances up at the plate. That was a great trade for them. They gave up, let's see here, Jared Serena, Augustin Ramirez, and Abraham Ramirez too. Don't know any of them. I think the catcher is pretty highly touted um, from the Yankees. But once again, the evil empire gets a great pickup, and it speaks, speaks to like how the Marlins just are just selling everybody and still be competitive too. I mean, they put a beat down on the Braves this past weekend too.
We'll see. I think that Peter Bendix might be his name. I think he just took over for the Marlins this year as his first
Yeah,
year, and um, I don't know what his expectations were coming into the year. I'm sure he was saying we're going to compete, we're going to do this and that, and then once the season started, I think he realized we're probably not going to compete, um,
yeah, it was like
especially in
4 games in.
that division. But you know what? They are probably going to be one of the top couple winners of this offseason. Like you said, they got a bunch of guys.
Because I'll break down a
And
couple of their trades too coming up too. Is they got Jason Adam from Tampa
hmm,
for 3 prospects, one of them being Dylan Lesko, who was like a top 10 pick from the Padres. So Padres are going all in on it. So they got 3, and he's been really good this year too, Jason Adam. But
yeah,
they traded for that bullpen help, and then in addition to that, they went to Miami and traded for Tanner Scott too. So like the Padres are really going after it this year.
and they got
And
that the guy with one of my favorite last names, Brian Hoeing.
yeah, they got him too. I forgot about that. Trying to get that trade up. I can't find it now. So many damn
Miami
trades.
got San Diego's 2, 4, 5, and 24 in that deal, I think.
Yeah, no, you literally nailed it. And I it's so surprising for what they like. Tanner Scott's been good, but I don't.
Yeah.
You could have done a lot more for him, in my opinion. I mean, Snelling is a highly touted prospect. Graham Pauley, he was another guy that was like kind of knocking on the door to play when um, Manny was out with his elbow. So I don't know. The Padres are one of those teams that just does not care about the future. They're going to sign these big stars to 10-year deals and then sell whatever prospect they have every year.
That's Preller. That's his MO. He a couple years ago, remember at the deadline, he acquired all those guys, and
Yep.
then it didn't work when they acquired all that talent. And you're thinking, oh my God, they got all these guys. There's no way they're not going to win. Didn't work.
Right.
Then he had to sell them all the very next year or in the offseason or whatever. So that's Preller, and he can build up a farm system,
Yeah, he can.
but
I'm
he
so
doesn't
jealous.
value prospects the way a lot of other guys do. He builds
Yeah.
up a farm system and then says, "Okay, here you go. Take this one, and this one." It's like he's giving out candy to a baby with these prospects.
And I'm kind of with him on that because here's the thing.
But
I want my best opportunity to win every year. Get me in that race, and being against the Dodgers. Granted, the Padres have spent a lot of money, as we said before. I don't know what they are in payroll. I can try to find that too while I'm talking, but they're just one of those teams that has to compete with the Dodgers in the NL West. And how do you do that? You kind of just have to do it via trade and try to develop. They are 11 on payroll right now with like 22 or $229 million, which is just astronomical. But they still have cap space too. They have 7 million in cap space. Probably just as they stole some guys from Miami who were pretty cheap. But yeah, San Diego is one of those teams that's very sneaky. I think they could really be the Arizona of last year, where they could make a World Series.
you know what? I'd like to see that because I like San Diego and I've liked them for the last few years with some of these guys, and it just hasn't
Yeah,
worked because the Dodgers are just too good and they haven't been as good as they should have been. But I'd like to see it. But
yeah.
I don't know, especially with Mookie coming back, and then Freddie is supposed to be coming back in the next couple of days or whatever. So, with those two coming back, all the Dodgers need is Glass now and another pitcher, the
Yeah.
halfway decent bullpen, and that's probably going to
I
get
mean,
them.
San Diego's got the
Yeah,
wild card, so San Diego and
Yeah.
Arizona both have the wild card. It's going to be a wild race, I think, at the end. I think the Cardinals can be a team that like really sneaks up there, but the Braves are holding on by point 0.5 for the first one. But the Mets too. The Mets made a couple small moves. I think they got like Jesse Winker, and I think Mark Cannon. No, Mark Cannon went to San Francisco. But yeah, I mean, those were my main pickups that I saw. That a couple guys made some. Some of these bullpen guys were having hot years. So like the Red Sox got a couple of them. But yeah, any other trades that I might have missed that you have on your list that really stuck out to you?
Um, Other than the Mark Leiter trade with the
That one I was going to bring
Yankees,
up too. Yeah,
little sad to see him go. I've liked him the past couple of years. He's really solid, dependable, late inning reliever. But we did get a pair of 24-year-old prospects,
yeah.
one position player, one pitcher, who both have looked pretty good this year at Double A, and the pitcher's been Double A and Triple A. So, um, sad to see Leiter go, but he'll join a nice bullpen over there with the Yankees, and we'll see if those two kids are halfway decent. It's always interesting when you make a deal with the Yankees because you just expect them to have a bunch of good guys, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I even forgot you guys had Mark Leiter. Didn't you guys trade him a couple of years ago and then he worked his way back over here? Or I don't. If you don't know, we will just move on from it. But I feel like
couldn't tell you.
okay, yeah, I felt like I felt like they traded him during a deadline a couple years ago, and then I think they traded him to the Yankees. I'm gonna have to fact check myself here, but I felt like I was in Groundhog Day where Mark Leiter did get traded before and made his way back, but who knows?
Another interesting trade too for Cleveland was, I believe they acquired Alex Cobb, who hasn't even pitched this year.
Yeah, he's back this weekend.
Supposed to be coming back, and he had a real nice year last year. I think he was an all-star for San Fran. But another interesting move for Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland, too, they've
Yeah,
got a legit chance to win their division for the first time in I don't know how many years. They might have won their division in 16.
I think 16 they
Um,
won it. I
but
think
before 16, I mean, you got to be talking maybe, I would
they had a
assume a
couple good
while.
teams. Yeah, they had the CC Sabathia teams. I mean, the Tigers were good. We can do that for a podcast one day. We'll go back and just look at the 2000 teams and just look year by year. And the Tigers were, but yeah, Cleveland was always a pain in the ass though. Yeah, they might hold off the Twins, so we'll see.
I I think they will. I mean, you know what? Minnesota's gotten hot at the right time. Kansas City's still having a nice year too, but it'd be quite the shame for Cleveland. They've been in first all year, and they've had the year they've had. It'd be a shame for them to lose it right at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Anything else baseball related? I think we've touched on pretty much everything that I can think of, at least.
I think we've pretty much touched on just about everything I had written down. So yeah.
Perfect. All right. Moving on to our little Mount Rushmore, and I'm actually real excited about this one. It's the list of minor inconveniences. We kind of touched on this like 2 weeks ago, but I will pass it over to Dan here for the 1-1 overall pick.
1-1. Oh, baby. Well, thank you for giving me the 1-1. You're too kind. Um, all right. Number one has got to be this is, I think I've already mentioned this, but number one has got to be 1-1. After you take a shower, you get out, and right away you're like, oh boy, it's trip number two to the potty. Taking a dump after the shower in the morning on your way to work, right? Just
Yeah.
completely throws you off, right? You get out, you feel like pardon my French, if we have anyone under the ages of whatever, earmuffs here, but you feel like a dirty bitch when you get out of the shower, right?
God.
And you
Jesus
gotta,
Christ.
well, I said that it was coming, earmuffs, but you do. And, you know, it's just an awful feeling, right? I almost wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Getting out of the shower, getting ready for the day, and you're like, oh no, this is terrible. Because what do you do, right? Then you got to go back, you sit down, you got to take care of business again, assuming, right? And then what do you do?
You gotta have your dude wipes.
Got to have your dude wipes, essentially, right? And it's like, you know what? I don't even know if I don't even want to go there with the dude wipes. Do you take a second shower? Do you get back in, or do you take a dump and call in to work and say, hey, you know what? I can't make it in today. Just can't make it in. Just, I mean, what do you do? Those are the only two options,
I
as far as
mean,
I'm concerned.
I'll take a page out of your book that you mentioned a couple weeks ago about sitting on the toilet for 20 minutes, which I don't know how you have that much time to do that, but
Oh, dude.
um, and you'd think with all that time you spend on the toilet, you'd be better at fantasy, but if we are where we are, anyway, yeah, I guess you'd have to jump back in the shower for that one.
Always with the pokes, Jeffrey. Always with the pokes. Yeah,
Always.
especially the beer league too. Holy shit, man! That fucking. I don't even want to get into that. That's my 1-1, Jeffrey.
I like it. Okay, so I'm gonna stick with mine that I mentioned a couple weeks ago. On my first one will be wet socks. There's nothing worse, especially if you have a dog. You step into like a puddle of their water, and it's not just water; it's like the drool water all over the floor. You
It's
soak
the
it up in your
truth.
socks, and then you know, once again you say like, "Oh, I'm walking, like I'm getting ready for work," and it's like, "Oh, you step in something wet," and you just have to. I mean, I've done it where I've like, okay, fuck it, I don't have time to go run upstairs and change my socks, so I have to go to my socks and shoes, and yeah, not fun. Um, and then on my return one, another one where I'm stepping in dog shit. There's nothing worse than stepping in dog shit because you it stinks. I'm gonna keep it pretty just basic because everyone knows it stinks. You slide a little bit, and it's a hell of a time to clean up.
It's awful, and I got to be honest. Just a real quick story. I did this a couple weeks ago. Okay, and this is awful, and I shouldn't even be sharing this, but the dog, for whatever reason, had a little landmine, little mud pile on one of our little rugs before we go up the stairs. I fall asleep on the couch, and I get up, and I'm like, oh man, I'm exhausted. You know what I mean? There's no lights on. I turn the TV off. I'm walking, and I'm getting ready to go up the stairs, and I take a step, and my foot, once barefoot, by the way, let's just preference that too.
Oh
No socks
no!
on, barefoot, okay? Foot goes down, didn't go down all the way because, when you step on something that isn't floor, carpet, a rug, pretty quickly, all right? I could be asleep and still be like, oh, I'd wake up. Foot goes down probably about 75, 80% of the way. Unfortunately, I have to admit, yeah, I mean, it was more than enough. Um, Mom was asleep, go upstairs, and, I'm like, you know what? I got to wash my foot off, got to do all of that. Washing it off your foot, just not good, right? It's no bueno, but stepping in it when you're half asleep is, let's put it this way, didn't love Annie, didn't love her that night
No,
when that happened.
no. Most of the time that I'm pretty fortunate that like I didn't have to deal with that all that much. Um, but mine was always like other people's dog shit too. I don't know why.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like there's people
That's even
never.
worse.
Yeah, people don't pick up their own dog shit, which drives me absolutely nuts. But that's a minor inconvenience that I'm going to bring up. But all right, hit me with your next one.
Being the UPS driver, I'm trudging through people's front yards every day, and I can attest to that.
Yeah.
Mine are going to have a lot to do with poo, I think, since I'm
Oh
looking
my
at this.
god.
So just a preference on that. But I'm going to go with this is number two, right? So this is 1-2, 1-2. We're going to go with this one. This one's a little bit worse. When you got to poo and you're out and about. I don't know about
Yeah.
you. I'm a comfortable guy. I've already mentioned it. I could sit down on the toilet for 20, 30 minutes, be on my phone. I'm an old timer, I guess. People used to bring the newspaper in there and start reading, right? Do a little light reading. That's what I like to do. And when you're out and about and you're like 20, 30 minutes away and you're on the highway, you're stuck in traffic, could be whatever. And you're just like, "Oh dear." You know what I mean? Sometimes you're like, "You know what? I'm not going to make it." You got to pull
Yeah,
over,
you have
you
to
got to
go.
stop. And where do you go? you're going to go to a gas station, you're going to go somewhere, and most of the time it's like, hey, yeah, this is going to be what it is, but I'm not going to like it, but I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I've had a couple experiences where, I mean, I prefer to go at my house, you know, but if you have to go, you have to go, and once that gurgle hits, you have to do it.
I got for 1-3. This is, you know what? We're gonna go. Hang on, give me 1 second here, because I wrote down. There's like 20 here. I have so many. It's unbelievable. You know what? These are going to be my honorable mentions. I got a lot of honorable mentions here. We're going to go with. How about this one for 1-3? This is a good one. Sharding. When you
Oh
shart.
my God. You and the goddamn poop ones.
When you try to fart and a little poop comes out. Let me tell you something. It hasn't happened to me in quite some time, but you know what? I caught a clip from the movie Along Came Polly recently, and it's
Yeah.
in that movie. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's just another one. I mean, for me, minor inconveniences could be a lot of things, and there's going to be a lot of other honorable mentions, but for me, a lot of it has to do with poop. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it sounds like you have to get your colon checked out, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I haven't had many experiences with that one, honestly. Luckily, knock on wood.
hey, there you go.
All right. My 1-3 for mine. When the house is too hot when you sleep.
That's a minor inconvenience.
It is. We have to make sure it's solid 68 degrees in the house. You got 3 fans going. One's a ceiling, one's a mounted one. You have to have it. You have to have it cold in the house.
Okay. 1-4.
And then 1-4. Misplacing your wallet.
Oh, I have that on here.
The amount of times that I lose my wallet and not actually lose it, but just put it somewhere and forget where it's at, and I'm about to leave, either trying to go catch a train to go to work or trying to do something like that, and I need to find my wallet. So I just kind of try to leave it in the same spot every time.
I have, you know what? I have one for a passport, but that's going to be an honorable mention, and that's just another story when we went to Mexico and this chick lost her passport. That's more of a major inconvenience. But number 4 for me, we're gonna go with sunburn. We're gonna steer clear. Could have went with another fecal matter one, but
I think you cleared everything out. All these damn fecal
quite
matter.
literally.
Yeah.
Sunburn though, just an absolute B, capital B. All right, and everything about it sucks. You're out there in the sun. You think, oh, I'm good. I reapplied. I'm good to go. Then you go in to take a shower after, and you're like, oh, dear, oh, shnikes. Then you got to go, because I'm a hot shower guy, usually, right? Not scalding, but hot enough.
Yeah.
Man, and when you got to go to a cold shower on vacation when you got sunburned, it's a tough couple days after that.
Yeah. No, I actually haven't had a major sunburn in years because of having tattoos. I have like SPF 50, if not higher. And I reapply like constantly. Even at a ball game, I'm like buying like little like things of sunscreen, or if I can't bring them into the game, I'm making sure I'm out of the sun.
You have to, especially with how white we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. We are very pasty people, especially given that like I don't go outside, and when I do go outside, like I said, I lather up. So. Moving on to some honorable mentions. Mine, forgetting your password. I do that a lot. Everything has a sign in. I do take advantage of those, like key code or whatever on Apple. That one. When you play a video game online and it lags, when it moves slow.
Terrible. When you're playing COD and you lag and someone's, you're like, oh, I would have killed that guy, but he kills you. It's the worst feeling.
Yep. And then my last one, somebody standing in the middle of a grocery aisle with their cart.
You sound like Larry David now.
It's a minor inconvenience. I mean, go off to the side and figure it out. Like, come on.
The aisles aren't that wide to begin with, and with you when you're in there, that's funny.
Standing in the middle. Fucking Grandma Loretta getting her grapefruit.
All right. If we're doing three, I got three for you. Soap in the eye. This just
Ooh.
happened to me
Yep.
recently when I was in the shower. I was lathering up, got a little crazy under the armpit or over the shoulder, whichever it was. Got a little splash right in the eye, and you're like, oh Jesus, this is going to be a tough day now for at least a couple hours because when that soap really gets in there, it really
Yeah.
screws you up. Crying baby could
Yeah.
be anywhere. You may have a little more experience with this than I do,
Yeah, I
but
sympathize with those parents, that's for sure.
could be any situation. Could be a grocery store. Could be on a plane. Could be on a
Why do you think I
train.
haven't why do you think I haven't flown anywhere?
Crying babies are literally some of the worst. I mean, what do you do to shut them up? Do you have to light a cigarette to light them
Yeah.
up to shut them up?
You can't. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing. There's nothing. Sometimes when they're crying, that's it, man.
And the number three, rounding out the honorable mentions. How about a good old toe stub? Stub your toe.
Yes, you know what? That was I forgot to write it down, but that was on my thought. Do it way too often too.
Yeah, you mean you could walk into anything. It could be a door, it could be a chair, it could be your dog's bone. I step
Yeah.
on
Oh,
Annie's toys all the time, and
same.
that's not a toe stub, but you step on a bone or one of those hard toys, you feel like you broke your foot.
Yeah, you know what? Stepping on a dog toy or stepping on a child's toy.
Yeah, or Lego. Yeah.
Yeah, luckily she's not in Legos yet, but I mean she does the building blocks, and my God, dude, the amount of times I step on those things, and it's never just one. It's like one, I like lose my balance because I stepped on it. I'm like, and I end up like planting my foot on another one, so then I just kind of collapse.
That's how it goes, right? You never step on one. It's always like a maze, and you find a way to step on every single one.
Yeah, and I gotta get back. It's too warm out right now, but get back. Are you a moccasin guy?
Remind me what a moccasin is.
It's like those little like indoor slippers.
Okay, all right, yeah. I've got a pair of bougie slippers. Yeah, they're Ralph Lauren. They're Polo. Yeah, Ralph Lauren. They're bougie.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's why you have to wear them, around the house. Safety first.
You know what? It's safety first, but it's also fashion first. Is really the main thing. You got to look good, and then if
Yeah,
you stub your toe, hey, whatever. You still look good doing it, right?
true. Exactly. Well, those are our inconveniences. That's the MLB trade. I think we knocked it out of the park with this one, and I think you'll enjoy this podcast.
That's me knocking it out.
There you go. Well, think you like us.
Hey, 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 hey.